All right, everyone. Wanted to go over a question on the housing market here before we finished off this part of the course on supply and demand. This particular question I'm going to go over is really kind of an all-encompassing question about the housing market. So, gives you some background on what the reasons for owning a home and investing in homes are, but then also talks about the dynamics of the housing market during the 2000s, specifically in Riverside, California. So you start off on the question, really kind of move into part B, learning that in the year 2000, the price of the average home in Riverside was $120,000. And I just said, let's make the assumption that there were 1,000 homes sold that year, just so we can center ourselves at an easy spot. So when you see those two pieces of information, all you have to do is just draw a pretty standard supply and demand curve and have demand 2,000 right here and have supply 2,000 right here. The information that you're given is telling you that we've got 1,000 homes sold in 2000, and we've got them sold at an average price of $120,000. So I've got 120K there as the average price. So it says also to label the equilibrium point A. Okay, so we start right here, but then you learn that 6 years later, in 2006, we've got a different set of prices and quantities. So the price in 2006 was equal to 330,000. So it went up quite a bit. So think about that. In 6 years, you've got over almost a threefold increase in prices, and then the quantity that was bought and sold during that time was, let's make the assumption that we've doubled the amount of homes that are sold from 1,000 to 2,000. So you'd say, okay, well, we've got this new equilibrium price and quantity here in 2006, such that prices have gone up and quantity has gone up. So our new equilibrium is at a higher price at a higher quantity. When we look at the supply and demand graph, we should be getting more comfortable with this and be able to say to ourselves that in order for us to have a price and a quantity increase in terms of equilibrium, it must be that we've got a higher demand curve. Okay, so the demand curve should increase or shift to the right, and it would be someplace like right there. So now our new equilibrium would be at 2,000 homes and a price of $330,000. Okay, so this is kind of saying, all right, let's take the facts that we know. We know that prices have went up. We know that quantity has went up. That must mean that supply could have shifted maybe a little bit, but the dominating shift, the dominating shift in the housing market is a demand increase or shift right. And again, the reason we know this is because both price and quantity went up between 2000 and 2006. Okay, so that gives us kind of a nice starting point at 2000, and then we see this increase in price and quantity. That had to be because demand increased at least more than supply. That's the dominating shift between 2000 and 2006. Okay, so now let's go on to part D. So D says because home prices tripled in 6 years, how would you expect builders to react in 2007, 2008? So instead of putting that on this graph, let's kind of go to a new graph. Let's recenter ourselves, right, and say we're starting in 2006. Got a demand curve that's, well, make it a little bit further out here. Demand curve is out here. We've got that supply curve from 2006 as well. So here's demand 2006, and we've got supply 2006. Okay. We're told, or we learned from last part of the question, that our equilibrium point here at B is at 330,000, and we've got 2,000 homes bought and sold. Okay, so part D then says, because home prices nearly tripled in 6 years, how would you expect home builders to react in 2007 and 2008? So if you're a home builder and you're saying, gosh, prices went up from 120,000 to 330,000. I should probably join this crowd here and get some of this additional investment in the housing market. I'm going to go ahead and increase the amount that I build. So now builders in 2007, 2008, they're going to build more. Build more new homes. We're going to start a lot more construction projects in 2007, 2008 compared to previous years. So what does this mean? This means we're going to have an increase in the supply curve or a shift to the right. So I've got supply 2007 here, right? Put 2007, 2008. All right, so over those 2 years, it's not surprising to think that we've got this increase in the supply, and we've got a new equilibrium here at point C. We've got a higher number of homes that are bought, but then we're going to have them at a lower price level than before. I'm not really giving you too much information on that. I'm just saying here's 2008, and here's that price level potentially in 2008. Okay. But then let's take this a step forward and say by the end of 2008, geez, we've got a new piece of information that we're given in the question. It says in 2008, prices had went all the way back down to $190,000, and there were 2,500 homes sold. So quantity in 2008 is 2,500, okay? All right, so now we've got kind of another shift that's got to be causing additional price reductions in this housing market. So if we had an increase in supply that dropped the housing prices from 330,000 to 190,000, that would seem like almost too big of a reduction. So because we have this price going down and potentially this quantity going down, we can say there's also this demand reduction during this time. And so let's put that on here. So we've got demand going down, demand 2008. All right, so now that new equilibrium will be at 2,500 homes and a price of $190,000. Okay, so if we've got a demand decrease, all right, we're showing essentially how we've got this change in equilibrium from 2006 to 2008 because we have a supply increase because investors or housing developers wanted to build more homes. That caused this shift to the right in our supply curve, but at the same time, that was when individuals in these housing markets, whether they were speculators or individuals that lost their jobs, they decided to essentially not demand as much as they did before. Demand goes down, and now we have a new equilibrium at $190,000 and 2,500 homes bought and sold. Okay, so hopefully this kind of gives you a sense of just how to work through, again, a new problem, another problem, in this case on the housing market. Make sure you're connecting all of these shifts to things that are going on in the real world. So when we think back to the original situation from 2000 to 2006, a lot of dominating demand increases is coming from whether it's reductions in the, we'll say reductions in mortgage rates or interest rates. That was going on along with speculation. Right, that was fueling a lot of this increase in demand. That moved us from point A to point B. Housing developers got on board, started to increase their supply. All right, but during that time period, as they were increasing their supply, we've got a shock, kind of a great recession shock. Employment starts to go up, jobs are lost. Overall, demand decreases, and that's going to drive those prices down from $330,000 to $190,000. So a pretty big loss in terms of overall equity. So hopefully this helps you guys out, and we'll see you guys in the next question.